All right, welcome to Friday's episode of Wake Up with Workday. I am your host, Tony Gilfillan, and I have with me the wonderful Todd Tarpley. Welcome, Todd. Pretty good. It is Friday, and this is my favorite day of the week with you by my side. All right. So jumping in here, I found this one pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Moltbook. It's now called OpenClaw. It's basically a vibe coded agent. So a master of agents type of thing, spawns other agents, creates agent swarms. Is kind of crazy new idea of creating an agent that masterfully creates software for you by generating a bunch of other agents. And then Moltbook is the Facebook for those agents. I don't know if you've heard about this, Todd, but it's basically a Facebook for these Moltbook agents. So they're on there just kind of talking to each other, learning different things, creating religions. It's pretty silly, honestly. But there's a pretty big security risk here because it's exposing user data and API keys and all kinds of other stuff on this social media platform for agents. So if you're on there and you're using OpenClaw or whatever it's called these days, just be cognizant that it is leaking your data. Probably wouldn't install it though. You could check it out though. As humans, you can go to Moltbook and just read the chaos that these agents are throwing out there. But it's pretty entertaining. But I definitely wouldn't hook it up to my system. But that leads me to my question of the day here. I saw an interesting question, not maybe interesting, but also pretty obvious. Do developers these days need to have the competencies to use these AI tools, like not necessarily OpenClaw, but Claude, Cursor, all the different stuff these days. Even Workday has one built in, the Workday Copilot. So my question is, like, pairing these, not necessarily Copilot itself, because obviously that's tied into the Workday ecosystem and has real value to building SQL and building pages, and now the searching for different APIs on using the Copilot for APIs. But what about the other ones using Cursor and Claude and Gemini and Perplexity, whichever one you're savvy to, and pairing that with Workday development? Is that useful? Is that something that you need to know? Obviously, you know, going path forward, it seems like everyone's moving toward using these IDE agents and building with them and creating more things and more useful stuff, and it's becoming a lot smarter. But is it useful today? And I asked Gemini to answer this question for me. And this is kind of what it came up with. It said it can generate UI. We'll put that one to the test. It says that it can generate WQL queries. We'll put that one to the test too. Can it connect APIs? We've actually done that on this stream. So that one's not a shocker. APIs are well documented, easily to access, and pretty easy to access from an external system. So this one is not shocking. We don't need to test that. If you want to see that in action, just watch previous live streams and you'll get an idea of how to do that one. And then deploy to Workday. The current CLI isn't able to directly deploy to App Hub or anything like that. So this is pretty much a hard no at this moment. But I think these two are really interesting use cases to test with these AI agent systems. I think we're going to play with Cursor. I don't know if you've had any experience with this, Todd, as far as generating stuff outside of the Workday Copilot. Yeah, same. And what we are going to do, we're actually going to put this thing through the ringer, like try to see if it can just straight up generate stuff, not necessarily give it any kind of context, but let it do its own searching, let it kind of figure out that kind of stuff on its own. So we have our Orchestrate Insights dashboard that we built a few weeks ago, if you remember, Todd. And we're going to see if it can't just build us another PMD page. So we have our little dashboard. Let's see if it can't build us a secondary dashboard for, say, one particular application that we're going to want to select. So we want just kind of spitballing an idea here. You have a drop down of all the applications that exist in your tenant, and you want to be able to select which one you want to get, analytics on, and then from there, it should dynamically update the charts. So we'll go ahead and start by just telling Cursor to create us a drop down and add two charts. Pretty simple. We could do that. I think Copilot would handle this pretty simply, but we'll see what Cursor has to say. Yeah, we're doing this live. I have not played with this at all. All right, so let's see here. We have a new agent. We are in a my downloaded zip from my dev site. I'm just going to tell it the current project is a Workday Extend app. I would like to create a new PMD. Specify this is a UI page to have a drop down to select from list of applications on a Workday tenant, and then update two charts based on the drop down selection. So this is pretty broad, honestly, but I'm going to see what Cursor does with this. I'm just going to let this be on auto mode. We're not going to go through planning. Plan mode might be the better way to go here because it's going to ask you additional questions and probably ask for some additional context in regard to doing this. It's asking to essentially web search now. I'm going to turn auto web search on so it can kind of Google whatever it wants, let it open up that way. There's not a whole lot that it can find as far as documentation because that is behind authentication that Cursor is not able to reach. We'll see what it can actually figure out though, because there's plenty of stuff out on the open internet. People like myself, people in the community doing this kind of thing. So maybe there is enough information out there right now for it to think up something. These models are getting smarter every day, so it's only a matter of time. It's doing something. So created it's it's created an SSO. So it's created three different endpoints. These don't exist yet, these orchestrations. It's just assuming that these are going to be orchestrations that need to be created. It's kind of cool though. It's creating essentially to-dos for you as far as the endpoints that you'll need. So it's finished. Let's see what all it created. Just a simple title, a select. We'll see if this is actually in proper format. I mean, it seems to have created what we need. Let's just keep this and upload it to the dev site, see what happens. Honestly, I have tried this many months ago, back when I first got into the world of Cursor, and it failed miserably. This is definitely a step forward in what it used to do, just 3 or 4 months ago. We'll go ahead and upload this. Switch to my little testing company. We're going to create an extend app, just upload our zip file. I always forget the file locations of the reveal in Finder. That is right here. I need the zip of this. All right, let me zip up this real quick. And drop this here. And we'll name this Workstate Insights Test. Cursor test. See if this thing compiles. The true test. I mean, that is interesting that it did go down the route of creating endpoints that don't exist. Obviously, they'll air out when trying to hit those, but the fact that it does know that you need endpoints to fill these charts and drop downs with data is definitely a step forward. Well, it didn't blow up when it first came up. Let's hit the validate button, see what we get. You defined an invalid tag select. So I think it did not know what the dropdown was. Switch to code mode. Yeah, it doesn't validate in visual mode. Select. There is no type select. it's it's just dropdown, isn't it? Let's see if it is able to. Doesn't like it still. Mismatched input type. What is it trying to do here? Most of these seem to be valid tags. Where is it blowing up at? What I can do to just get this thing to actually validate. Invalid tag chart. So the charts are not also in proper, because these are, you have to name these charts specifically which chart you're trying to actually build. So it did create something, but it's definitely not, valid PMD is what the chart types. You have to specify, specific chart types in there where it just said chart. Yeah. So I give it a D plus for trying to generate this. it, it created something. It created some endpoints that seemingly are valid endpoints, but obviously the orchestrations don't exist in the background. The only thing it seemed to fail on is the chart. If we just remove all these tags that we asked it to build, I bet this is fine otherwise. Yeah. So once you remove the two charts and the drop down, which it didn't know how to tag properly, this does validate, and it's just giving you warnings on the orchestrations. Yeah. So again, I give it a D plus for attempting. Not a fail per se, but it tried. Good try, cursor. All right, so next is what we're gonna try is building a WQL query. So let's go ahead and log into our tenant and grab, oh, what do we got here? We can find some sort of data source to leverage. Let's see here. So if I just look at my apps real quick, I got a few of these that have objects within them. What did we build before that has an object that we can fiddle with? Oh, that stock notifications app that we built a while back. We can use that. I think that actually is using a WQL. Let's see if Cursor can recreate what we threw in here. Where did I stick that? Here's the query. So this is the query. If I just give it, what could you give this? Well, let's look this up in our app manager and just feed it some fields and see what it spits back out at me. Correct, yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. WQL for Logan McNeil's. Say that again. Aren't we all, Todd? Aren't we all? You'd think it should be able to find that, off of, API, because the APIs are out there. It should be able to kind of discern what exists in every single tenant. Yeah, if you Google Workday enough, you'll come across Logan. All right, what do we got here? It created. Did it actually create a WQL component for me? Interesting. It's not in the right syntax to be a WQL component, but it is a. I'm gonna copy and paste this into App Builder and just assume that it tried its best to actually create a WQL component. Let's duplicate this stock info query, and we're going to create a secondary query for Logan. And we'll drop it in here. Fix a little syntax. It's an interesting way to try to find Logan McNeil. It does first name, last name. All right. Or if it found like employee ID or something. All right, let's switch out this to. Say, what is this trying to spit out? It's just on. I can't remember what exactly I'm even doing on this. Mock data, let's connect to a tenant. This is actually hitting Claude and returning us to something. So I would just want to, I'm going to duplicate this and just put this response out into something we can just see. Logan query. And then this is going to just be, probably rename this something useful, but this is just for testing. So I'm essentially just taking the endpoint ID and just slapping it out there to see what comes back from this WQL query, if it actually functions. Uh, is it? Oh, the name of the. Gotcha. That's the ID of the whole thing. Yeah. WQL error. Worker is invalid. What data source did it try to use? Just worker. So it tried, but again, I would say kind of a fail there. So Gemini, while you might have this is definitely a maybe. Can and Cursor Claude do it? Yes is kind of a stretch. You had errors in both. You had PMDs that were valid JSON. It's not like it didn't have something that compiled. You were able to upload it, and it just didn't show in visual mode. So it I'd say it got 80% of the way there. That's the thing. These tools, it did look right off the cuff. Like these tools are really good at getting any software 80% of the way there. So it's that extra 20% that's really hard to find. Oh, it looks like so one of our friends in chat actually said they were able to generate orchestrations using Claude, which that's pretty cool. I didn't know that was possible. Um, because orchestrations are even more complex. If you look at the actual code in the background here, like that is complex. Like, oh, let's see if it can do it. You know what? We got 9 minutes. Let's see what Cursor can do with just building. Let's give it a data source too, so it'll actually have something to work off of here. We'll just give it the stock info data source. Where's my cursor? Generate me a orchestration that can retrieve all records from this data source. Probably need to be more specific than that, but you know what? Let's see what these things can do. So it's definitely has the idea of what to build, like that. Just the initial JSON off of that definitely looks like an orchestration off the cuff. Mm-hmm. That orchestration builder is able to see. Orchestration app uses base URL type. They create a PMD page that uses that orchestration. Yeah, sure. Create. We'll have it create us a quick PMD if this orchestration actually functions. Holy moly, it's creating a grid and everything. These things have definitely come a long way. Even if it has failed at, recognizing which tags to use, I'm not, completely poo-pooing on these. Like it's impressive. Yeah, exactly. Right. All right. So now let's do one more zip. Compress this bad boy. Back to my app. Can you overwrite an existing app with a zip? All right. Cursor test. Moment of truth. Yeah, I figured it wouldn't have nearly enough context to be able to build orchestrations, honestly. And if it does, I'm pretty impressed. Just because the orchestration builder backend, like the orchestrations themselves, are such kind of behemoths when it comes to like the JSON to actually create them. All right, let's see. Do we have an orchestration? Which one did it create? I think that is it. Isn't that the one that it created? It is, yes. It's there. It's an API request. I don't think records is an endpoint, but what if I just take that off? It probably work. Or actually, what is it trying to do here? Slash data sources. Yeah, it's trying to it's assuming some API URLs. But I bet if you fed this thing a URL to hit, like just a REST API URL from App Manager, then it would be able to figure it out pretty quickly. Because I mean, this builds like this is an orchestration. Like this didn't explode. Like it's rendering in my UI. It's just it got the actual URLs wrong. Which how would it have context to that besides the the little tag I gave it? So oh, did you say couldn't they configure a response? It did. Yeah, just gave it a response. That was a response. So it's impressive. It created an orchestration off of what I told it. Didn't have any context to the URL that I was trying to hit, so can't exactly doc. Yeah, it's an empty request. But I mean, to be expected, you're just trying to do a get. That's impressive, honestly. Like it's rendering in orchestration builder. It threw a component that does function. The URL was wrong, but again, I didn't give it enough information to correct that. So that's cool. Honestly, I bonus points to Cursor for being able to create orchestrations. That's really cool. Um, right, which it would never would if it didn't have the authentication to get in there. So, but if you were able to, if you just fed that information into the LLM, it will be able to generate that, obviously. So, like if you told it the right URL here, I think this thing would work. Yeah. So, I say A plus for as far as the orchestration piece goes. This is cool. I might be using this later. Very interesting. So we're nearing the end of time here, Todd. So final thoughts as far as pairing Claude and Cursor with Workday build development. You gonna start using it? Yeah, the Copilot is great when it comes to like PMD generation, WQL obviously, but I might be turning a new leaf here as far as orchestration building. Like this is cool. This might be something worth playing around with. So to answer the question of the day, the do developers need to have the skills, with these AI tools? I would say it's not exactly 100% needed to build stuff on Workday build, but it definitely helps in pairing with anything. Like you can brainstorm with these things, you can plan apps, you can build third-party applications, you can build orchestrations clearly now that I wasn't even thinking about. Appreciate the chime in there from the chat. And when it comes to the PMD stuff and the WQL, it's not quite there, but it's not exactly far off. So very interesting stuff, and definitely interested to see where this stuff goes in the coming months and years. I mean, heck, this stuff's moving at the speed of light right now. All right, appreciate you guys' time. Appreciate, yeah, exactly. All right, thanks as always, Todd. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you.